David, this is Eileen. Do you want to make me co-host?
Oh, yes, I've done that with Tony, and I forgot to do that with you.
Because he
Yes,
dropped
I do want
off.
to make you co-host. I do. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to see. We have Bill, too. Okay. This is David Weig, Chairman of the Morris Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Morris Planning and Zoning Commission at approximately 7:01 p.m. on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. Board members present are Eileen Arbutus, Veronica Florio, David Jeremiah, Douglas Owens, William Ailes, and we do have somebody who may well be on the board very soon in attendance, Ron Schaefer. That's why I'm mentioning him separately. Has anybody else joined since I last started? Because I don't have my pictures of everybody anymore. I have just the agenda on the screen. No other board members have joined? Okay.
Nope.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, but we have 3 people in the waiting room. Let me just make sure. We got an iPhone, we got an iPad, and we got Tracy Moore Harrington. Okay. There are no alternates present, so at the moment, so there's nobody to appoint for open seats on the board. Just to get it out of the way, 6A.
We
Ron,
do
are you
have.
still interested in? Is it okay if we start with 6A? Go on, Eileen.
I know that there is another member of the public who is trying to log in now who is also interested in 6A. So perhaps maybe we should continue that
Well, that's true.
Twice.
No problem. Well, let's give it time. But the thing is, there are 2 positions open, so yeah. So we'll hold off on that. Then that's you stated a good case for that. I just, if Ron was the only one here, I'd want to take care of that right away. Not that he's going to be able to vote on anything or do anything, but at least he would be, anointed to his, being an alternate on the board. Then the next question is Jocelyn. What are your time constraints? Because I do want to spend an hour with the public at least on Ben Paletsky. That is the first item.
Well, I would love to not be here all night, but I think we can review things fairly quickly if that's okay with the commission. I mean, I think we could get what really needs to get done, which is just for the commission to decide whether the draft is in a good enough state to get it out there to the public as a draft. There will always be time, there will be time for additional edits and comments, obviously. That's kind of what the next step in the process is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be great to, if you guys are comfortable to get that approved.
At a minimum, I'd like my name to be spelled correctly. Actually, I was able to convert it to Word and run the comparison. I'm about to email everyone with a red line comparison of the document. If you'll give me 2 seconds.
Doug,
Okay.
I mean, I think
Before
in
we
interest of
before we
time,
proceed with this, okay, excuse me, before we proceed with it, just,
yeah,
if anything, we're on item 2A, and I would entertain a motion as to how we want to proceed from the board.
This is Eileen Nerbutis. I make a motion that we take care of 4 old business as ahead of 3 new business in the matter of, because we have a guest.
This is Veronica. I'll
We
second
have
that.
lots of guests. She's not the only guest, but
The only guest on the agenda.
I'll second that.
they're
Veronica.
all on the agenda. Thank you, Veronica, for a second, but I just want to make a point that everybody here is on the agenda because if they have an interest in 3A, they're on the agenda.
Right. I think she meant she's on the agenda for number 4. So,
True. But I'm just making it clear, I don't want anybody to misunderstand that the board thinks that
sure.
people aren't here for something. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Jocelyn, you have the floor. And we will get to everybody. This will just give you more time to speak, probably because I won't be cutting you off at an hour because I want to take care of Jocelyn.
yeah, and I'll try to move through this quickly. One thing I wanted to show you guys briefly is where you are on your timeline. I know there's a sense of, urgency to do this right, but also to get the town plan completed. And Eileen or David, if you could let me share my screen, I can sort of show you where you are in the process and what the timeline looks like. You guys have to
You
co-host.
should be
me
able
do
to. I
that.
just allowed screen share.
All right. Here we go. All right. Actually, that's the.
That looked right to me.
Yeah, well, all right. Oh, here it is. I put it in a slightly better format. All right.
Oh, okay. Microsoft
So-
Project, maybe?
I don't know if you guys can read that, but so basically, as you know, there was the resident input survey that was done July through September. There's now the draft that you all have been working on. As I mentioned, really all I did with it was accept the edits, and I entered the names of the commissioners from the website. I can obviously fix misspelled names. And then the next step is, again, to make the draft final. And again, it's just a draft, but to make it final so you can start taking input on the draft, both from residents and from the boards and commissions that are tasked with various items within the town plan. So that would be the next step. And I guess I would encourage you guys to have this draft be good enough for the next steps. I mean, we could work on it for another 4 months if you want, but I think in terms of the timeline and all the statutory requirements, which this kind of shows you, you're already sort of at the last week of January if you accept this as a draft tonight and then have the kind of public comment feedback session on November 9th. So that's kind of what this timeline proposes is if you finalize the draft tonight and then we do some outreach around getting feedback from residents and town boards and commission members at your November 9th meeting.
Mhm.
I don't want to take too much time with this. Do you guys have any other questions about this
Nope.
timeline?
No, that seems,
Looks good.
Nope, looks good.
And I can send it to you too, but again, there's the statutory 65-day window from when you have a final draft after you get input from folks and decide what other edits you want to make. From that point on, you submit it to the Board of Selectmen and the COG, and then you have a public hearing to get more feedback and adopt it. Unless you want to go over any other comments on the draft, I guess the question is whether the board feels like it's ready enough for public review.
What is the feeling of
this-
the commission? Go on, Veronica. This is Dave
ready.
Briggs speaking.
Yeah, I'm in.
Sorry, say it again, please. I talked over you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Veronica Florio, and yes, I think that this is ready to present at the public meeting for input from the public.
This is
Yeah.
Doug Barnes. Yeah, I had a chance to skim through the changes briefly. I would like my name to be spelled correctly. I would like. I also think you missed a couple of NGDs that I put in there in the last draft. But it mostly seems to be fine.
And again,
What
it
did you
doesn't
mean by
mean
N-
it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we can't make additional edits to it. It's just got to, at some point you have to decide that it's good enough for getting feedback on.
Right. Before, just immediately before it's distributed, somebody can clean up a couple of those few typos and whatnot. Correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Question,
I
Doug,
think
this is
it's
Dave
fine.
Briggs. What do you mean by NDD? I'm sorry, I'm not great on
So
acronyms.
in the draft that I circulated, I put bracketed comments in there, and those should someone should go through before it gets sent out and search for square brackets and remove them because those.
I did that in the draft. So
All I'm saying is you just missed one or two. That's all. I'm not trying to be.
Okay.
I'm looking at the draft in the other window right here, right? And a few of them did not.
yeah,
Like,
that's, that's fine.
not a big deal.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. I agree.
But I just like other than just sort of the typos and removing all the bracketed items, I think it's fine.
Somebody want to put that in the form of a motion unless somebody feels differently about this?
Veronica, do you want to update your motion
We have no motion.
to say approved based upon the update of typos and
To make
the
a
checking
motion.
for?
Sure, I'm sorry.
I didn't recognize her as making a motion. Did you make a motion, Veronica? And I missed that?
I didn't, but I can.
I thought you
Okay.
made a motion to present this at the public meeting.
No, I just said I was good with it. But
Okay.
Nice kitty. This is Veronica. I'll make a motion to accept our final draft with some small corrections, spelling Doug's name correctly, and just going through the document for typos, and we'll accept it and present it to the public.
Second that.
Is that you, David?
Yes, Dave Jeremiah. I'll second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Or any discussion? I hear nothing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Did somebody speak to one of the abstentions or opposed?
No.
Or was that just noise? Okay. Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, so
Um,
then my
thank you.
understanding is that we can move forward with planning for November 9th as
Yes.
public input
we-
forum, and we can do that. Do you guys have another meeting in October?
Yes, we have two more in October scheduled. We have one on the 13th And our second one, I think, is on the 26th, if I remember
21st.
correctly. 21st, sorry.
Okay, can I
Thank
be
you,
on your,
Veronica.
can I be on your 21st agenda?
Definitely.
Because I already have a conflict with the 13th. But I'd be happy to kind of help think through the best way to get feedback on November 9th.
Right. No, I think that's an excellent idea. I appreciate that.
Um,
Let's make a plan for that.
And then, Eileen, did you see I did send some feedback on the flyer to Eileen, the flyer for the photo contest related to the town plan.
Yes, I did see that, and I received comments from several commission members. Thank you. One of the points that Jocelyn raised is she was hoping that we were going to have the public vote on pictures. It was my understanding that just the commission was going to do the voting. But it's whatever everyone else wants to do.
I guess, so just, I mean, obviously it's up to you guys. One of the things I was thinking was it might be a fun part of a public input forum if we could find like a quick, a not onerous and a quick way to sort of show people some of the great photos that were submitted and then have everyone be able to vote on their favorite photo of the town.
This is Eileen. While I love the idea, I'm just concerned about how we would be able to accomplish that through a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I think we can figure out how. And one of them might be that this commission could pick some, like I mean, I don't know how many submissions you'll get. If there's only 3, then that wouldn't be hard. You know, if you get 150, then I guess I would suggest that the
Maybe
commission
we do like semifinals or something.
Yeah, the commission
Well,
could do some weeding of the.
We could do that. The question is, how do you get the pictures to the public, and how do you, well, we could always post it to the agenda and have them download it.
Yeah.
And then, as long as we tag them with a number, we can have them vote via chat by entering the number of the picture.
Dave, this is the CEO speaking. There's also a poll feature on Zoom,
Right.
so I don't know how that exactly works. We could use that.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
one.
I think we can figure out the logistics if you guys want to move forward that way, and we don't have to talk about them because I know you need to get on to your other agenda items. But
So if everyone else is okay with Jocelyn's idea, I think that I will update the flyer to say that we're going to include voting from the town. That way everybody in the community can help with that. In addition, another commission member asked if,
I have a thought about that. Because there's prizes, I don't know if it would be good to have the public vote. What if somebody really wanted the gift certificate and got all their friends to vote? You know what I'm saying? It's kind
well,
of,
I sort of feel like it's an incentive to come to the meeting.
yeah.
Honestly, like who wants to go to another night meeting, right? So I just feel like this would be a fun part of the meeting and it would be another way to sort of get folks to come. If they want to get all their friends to come vote for their picture, great. Then you have all their friends giving you input on your town plan. I don't know. That's my opinion about it. It's only a $50 gift certificate. It's not like they're winning a, you know.
it's 100.
Right.
But-
It's not like you're winning a boat or a house.
But it also means that you earned the prize because you got the most people to speak to provide input or get input from us at the meeting, which is that is
Yeah.
a worthy.
It's totally up to you guys. I just was trying to think of something that could make the feedback forum also some fun and get people to come to it. Because again, it's just hard to get people to want to come to another meeting and talk about a town plan without,
Yeah.
you know, we can't give them cookies or ice cream or anything else fun on Zoom. So,
Thank you, Jocelyn. I was just this is Veronica, trying to troubleshoot and make sure we didn't step in it again.
The only
Jocelyn.
other point that was raised by commission members are can town officials and people within the commission submit pictures?
Yes. Why not?
That's what I thought.
It would probably be cleaner. It'd probably be cleaner if commission members didn't, but it's up to you guys. It's, I don't,
But Veronica, Jocelyn, do we need a final decision on this piece tonight?
only that I think it would be a good way, we should start getting the word out about November 9th as a,
Oh, yeah.
and it would just be nice. And the photo contest would, would be good to start getting the word out sooner rather than later.
Yes,
Well,
this is Eileen.
The November 9th was already chosen, but go ahead, Eileen.
I was going to say, I will update the flyer to everyone in the next day or two via email. And then once everyone has seen it, I will send it and ask the first selectman if he could post it to the front page of the website, maybe put it on Facebook. And then we can also put it under our meeting minutes and agenda on the website.
That would be great.
Okay.
And maybe also print off flyers and see if the local businesses want it hung up at their business too, because they're going to be having a gift certificate awarded from that business.
Do we need to make a motion on this, David, or no?
Never hurts.
All right, I'd like to make a motion for Eileen to change the wording to that the public will be voting to pick the winners of the picture contest.
Do I have a second?
This is Bill Ells. I'll second it.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Jocelyn?
The only other one last very quick thing was, did you want to get the commission's approval for HVA's mapping costs?
Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yes. What, Jocelyn and I have been going back and forth with the map. I don't think I shared the latest map with the board.
It was attached to the final draft of the plan.
Oh, right. Good.
Yeah.
And we just had the commercial districts were a bit off, and it took a couple iterations to get them right. I mean, there could be other things that are slightly off, but I know the commercial district so well from the years I've been on the board, so yeah, I just didn't feel right not trying to get those correct, because that is
Right.
critical.
And again, you can make other edits to that map too as part of the, draft town plan.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
209.
But I think we were expecting something, I forget what we were expecting for the
Well,
price. What are you expecting
HVA,
it to come to,
it's
Jocelyn?
$160 for the land use policy map. And if you would like her to also do the zoning map, a digital version of your zoning map, which could be included in the town plan, that's $100.
That's awful reasonable.
That's,
Yeah.
I definitely recommend that.
This is Veronica. I make a motion, I'm sorry, what was her name?
HVA.
HVA, to do a digital version of our zoning map.
This is Eileen
Yeah.
Arbutus, I second.
All
Do you
those
want them to
in-
do the land policy map too, V?
I'd do them both, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, the land use policy
Use
map
policy.
and the digital version of the zoning map.
Second, Eileen.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And I think we should add to that, do you accept adding to that motion that is currently quoted at a cost of $260 for both?
Yes.
Yes.
Eileen? Okay. I just think that should be part of the motion, just to make it.
Agreed.
I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Jocelyn?
Thank you. That's all I think that was urgent, and I really appreciate your pushing me up, and I apologize to everyone else who had to listen to it. But I will plan
No.
to come to your October 21st meeting to talk more about November 9th.
Which is good. It'll give us 2 meetings to probably talk more about South Farms, which is important. And because unfortunately, we do not have Ben at tonight's meeting. He did email me, and I would like to bring that up so I can at least read his response to the letter.
David, do you want me to bring it up for you?
Okay, that's fine. I guess I
Veronica,
got a
I'm going to
question.
mute you.
I guess my question is, has anybody taken a look at, should I read the letter that was sent first and then read Ben's response? What's the board's opinion?
This is Eileen. I was able to read all of the information that you sent, so however you would like to proceed is fine with me.
I think what's your feeling on how the public would feel? Would the public want to hear it, or do they just want to?
I would think that the public would be interested in seeing Mr. Poletsky's response.
Yes.
Well, but basically, I'll summarize what the letter. I sent a letter basically stating what happened, how we got there, and I highlighting the 6 items that we felt were important: noise, lighting, content, people loitering. I think I need to make it clear that that's more than just people turning around in somebody's driveway because they're going the wrong way. It's people actually catching a freebie concert. Then there's the frequency of events, the hours of the events, and basically the stuff that was enumerated in the motion plus what I called loitering. That motion that Bob McIntosh made on the 16th of September. And then, so Ben sent me an email today because he couldn't make the meeting. And that email included several attachments and no, really, the attachments were really relative to the discussion that we're going to have here tonight, because that's relative to an old application. It doesn't spell out some of the terms and conditions in that application. So, but Ben wrote to me, "Hi, David. I'll be unavailable for tonight's meeting. I spoke with Tony this morning during his office hours to specifically respond to the 6 points in the 928 letter. I included some comments below. Please note that none of these issues are in violation of any town ordinances or policies. The operation is in compliance. In mutual interest of working together and dialing in this concept, the concert team is either taking action to respond or have mitigated the concerns on the list. First one was volume. The production crew has implemented several approaches to directionalize the audio, equalize frequencies, to level the balance of the audio, and set decibel limiters during the production. Note that we're investigating acoustic fencing solutions options and a few other engineering efforts for further isolation." Number 2, lighting. I reviewed the pictures provided in the packet. Stage lighting is all directed onto my property. I think my first response on that is whether it's directed downwards, because I want to be thorough, because I know that, but because that lighting, that picture was taken from the opposite end of the stage, where not from the, if the stage is facing the property, that picture was not, well, actually, I'd have to think about it. Because I think the picture came from Trottle Lane, so I have to look at it. But anyway, I do plan to comment back on number 2, just for the record. And if anybody has anything to add to this, I'd appreciate take your input after I'm done reading it. Traffic. During regular rush hour, weekdays, 4 to 5 p.m., vehicles proceeding on Route 109 West into the 63-109 intersection back up by as much as 14 vehicles. Following the concerts at this location, there never exceeds 2 vehicles. Vehicles exiting the property are held at choke points on the property to eliminate their possible congestion. Frequency. COVID year is an anomaly to the norm. Subsequent years will see a more reasonable balance. Comedic content. COVID years is an anomaly to the norm. Comedians prefer to perform in indoor clubs. Loitering. Event security has allowed attendees who arrive early to an event to enter the property and queue on our laneway prior to gate time, so not to impede roadway traffic. These appear to address the issue. Now, there's more to loitering than that too, but I will, and he also added, I've noticed there's been a significant influx of letters I have noticed that there has been a significant influx of letters of support since the last meeting. I hope those statements can be shared with the commission so that there's a fair representation of the community response. Highlighted in many of the letters, others have clearly stated what benefits the venue has provided our community. Particularly striking is the note from neighbor John Murray. I believe that this is a complementary and positive use of the property that provides trickle-down benefits to the local economy. In contrast to some of the other options, I think this is the right thing to do. The concert series provided a unique economic and cultural engine to the area. Please note the attached document associated with the 2014 permit process by Scott. Note that the associated uses called out during that process is that the associated is indoor-outdoor event rental space. Best regards, Ben Pilecki, South Farms General Manager, blah, 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 blah.
Excuse me, David, this is Eileen. I just want to
yeah.
remind everyone on the call that unless you're speaking, to please be on mute. I've gone through and I keep muting people who take themselves back off of mute. And it's very difficult to, when you hear things in the background going on. And anyone who wishes to speak when we do start the open public, we are going to use the raise your hand feature like we have done for the past meetings. And if you wish to speak, please state your first and last name for the record. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. And there's also a couple items in the chat, David, so I didn't know if you wanted me to read those to you.
Yes. Well, I want to add a couple of comments, and then I'll have you read the chat, and then we'll go through the hands. I just want to point out that I do understand that when the response to frequency is a mention of subsequent years, which is not something that is approved beyond COVID, despite his feeling that there are subsequent years in the future, there are hurdles to clear before that could be possible. I just want to make clear that that is, beyond COVID, that he would have to have a significant change to his application for this to be the primary use of his property. And I agree that maybe with COVID, comedians would change their mind and rather be in outdoor events. And I just want to point out loitering is not just related to people who are hanging around, who get there early. It's people who are hanging around where they're not supposed to be during it. And that was brought up by some people at an earlier meeting, and I've witnessed that too during the concert. So Eileen, I will turn it over to you to read what's in the chat, please.
Yes. Edward Halen wrote I'm sorry, that's near the bottom. Edward Halen wrote, public comment is at the end of the meeting, right? Question mark. His isn't a hearing. I'm thinking that this isn't a hearing. No, Mr. Halen, this is not a public hearing. This is a regular planning and zoning meeting.
But we are going to take public input on this matter because I know this is of public concern, and it was put on the agenda with the expectation that people would want to speak.
That was exactly.
And we will, as far as people other than the board members speaking, I will please ask you to wait your turn. I'm glad that Edward Halen still alive. I read that Edward Van Halen died recently, but that was a different Edward Halen, I guess.
And as a
Or not
reminder, please, if you wish to speak, use the raise your hand feature for those of you who do not know how to use that. If you go down to the bottom of the screen, you will see a button that says participants. Once you have the participant window open, hold on, let me pull mine back up. You can find your name on the list, go to more, and you should have the raise your hand feature. If it's not there, down at the bottom, there are 3 dots in the lower right-hand screen, and you are able to raise your hand there as well.
And just one other quick comment. Tony, you found the minutes from the 2014 approval? Are you
Yes,
there?
yes, I did. I can have them out to whoever needs them tomorrow morning.
What were did you remember what the conditions of approval
I do not
were?
remember the conditions.
Okay. Because that's something that has been asked about. I just want to know if we hadn't answered that before the meeting began, because I was not at that meeting back in 2014, even though I was on the board. But
Okay.
so I do not recall, and I did not have a copy of those minutes in my files. So I'm counting on you to get that out to all of us, please.
Yeah, no, I just found them actually the last couple of days looking through the minutes book and the files. So it hasn't been easy.
All right.
Thank you, Tony. You're
Uh,
welcome. Any
The
more
next
comments, Eileen?
yes, there's quite a few. Doug, commission member, let us know that he's distributed a tracked change version of the plan from where we left things last week to the board members. And yes, I did receive that email. Thank you, Doug. Edward Halen writes, sounds like the chair may be throwing Robert's rules right out the door. He continues with all communications need to be part of the agenda if they are to be discussed. If not part of the agenda packet, can't be discussed. Where is this email in the agenda packet? If this isn't, this is illegal. CJ wrote, this isn't a vote on how many people are for or against this. It is not allowed, period. Burke Gibney, and again, I apologize if I'm saying anyone's name incorrectly. I believe that's correct, Edward, and I don't see it either. The only attachment to the agenda I see is the POCAD draft, which is the town plan. Edward Halen writes, there needs to be a FOIA seminar in this town. Lori Kibbe says, I have been asking for the previous conditions for weeks. I also asked for them to be read into this meeting. Bob Mack said he reviewed all of them last meeting. Edward Halen says, well, he read all of the emails received. Deborah White says, can you make his response public and or reread his response to frequency?
To answer the last question, his comments, as well as a number of emails I've received over the past week and today, will be, as the others have, all be printed up and loaded to the website. So there's a public record of everything that has transpired. And as far as the letter and Ben Pelesi's letter that was received today, there was no time to include that as part of the packet. I felt that was pertinent to the record, so it was read into the record. I've also read letters from people opposed to the application into prior meetings, records that had just been received that have since been loaded to the website. And it will all be there. It's just not there tonight because it was not available till today, and actually like 3 or 4 o'clock today. I don't see any hands up. Do we have any more comments?
Let's see here.
The
Yes, we
Reynolds.
do. We have two more comments. Lori Kibbe says, where are the previous conditions? And Edward Halen typed illegal. But yes, we do have a hand up.
The Rennas, please. Can we unmute them? There are three dots on your,
Yep, he got it.
thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to comment on, we're talking about decibels or sound level and how it travels. I'm sitting here listening to this meeting right now, and my house is closed up, there's no windows open, and I can hear the music from here. And I'm on Slab Meadow Road. So his decibels are way out of whack, I feel. To have it travel this far, I don't think anybody needs to have the music that loud that's sitting in that field. And I also have a question is, he's using this for commercial use. Does his farm use tax base change for that property?
Good one.
That's a question I can't answer, but that would be a good question for the tax assessor, and because if he is in 490, and I have no idea that whether his farm is in 490 or not. But that's a very good question. That's something that needs to be taken to the assessor. Thank you, sir.
I think that would be a good idea. And again, I don't see us living in this town this close to that field for very long with this noise the way it is, and anybody being happy with that, whether you live close or not.
I understand. And just the one thing on the conditions, I do understand Lori Kibbe's point that the conditions are important, because if they do read no non-acoustic music, then that makes what's happening today an issue, and has been happening for the past month. And that's something that once we have that in front of us, we will discuss.
Okay.
Renee Normandy, it's your turn. You need to unmute yourself. There's like three dots and
Yep. Okay. Can
Thank you.
everybody hear me now?
yes.
Okay, I'd just like to touch on the Rennas. I've also been here since the start of this meeting. I also live on Slab Meadow Road. My doors are shut. My windows are down. Again, my son ran to bed. He has special needs and will not come out of his room. And I didn't mean to insinuate people were loitering in my driveway. That is not loitering. It's just an inconvenience to have people turning around in your driveway all the time and urinating across the street. Again, I've only been in Morris 3 years. As I said at the meeting last night and in my emails, I moved here for farms and supporting and the country and the scenery and the peace and the quiet. And to have to come here and think that this might be where I want to spend the rest of my life to live, now only to have to uproot myself, because I will not stay in the town of Morris if this continues. So at this point in the meeting, that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
And thank you, Renee. And this is Dave Lee again. Just to put something in context, Renee was referring to a special needs child that she has that reacts to the music and kind of runs to his room because he can't deal with the noise.
He doesn't play
And
outside.
that was
I'm just trying to figure out how to wave my hand. It's not,
well,
give me
hold
an
on.
Okay, okay.
Wait until Elizabeth Kearney has spoke, please.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you.
And I just wanted so the board understood what you meant by your comment, Renee. That's all. Elizabeth Kearney, you're next, please.
Excuse me, David, you may want to, when she said spoke last night, you may want to reiterate at where she was speaking in case there's anybody
Oh,
on the
yeah.
meeting who was not aware.
Yes, you would have been welcome to do that too, but I will add it since you turned it over to me, Eileen. This is Dave Lee again. Yes, we were at a couple of board members attended a first selectman meeting, which had a public input session on the Twilight concert series, and Renee was there and spoke. Elizabeth Kearney, it's your turn. I'm sorry.
Hi, David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, because the last time I tried it, it didn't work. Anyways, I'm on Anderson Road, and with my doors shut, windows down, we just heard it. We were hearing it in the house. This goes on constantly between now and 11/1. There are 18 concerts scheduled, more added every time one sells out. The hours go all the way to 10:30 or later. And I don't see the lighting, but my husband works in the space community, and there's a dark sky compliant. If you build a house, you try to keep your light pollution down. So they're obviously not trying to do that. I'm concerned that he might have an informal application for extended concerts after COVID is over. He's referencing support for these concerts, and I spent most of the day reading them. They're primarily from people not in Morris or who don't live on this side of town. The people that are near the event are the ones we are bearing the brunt of saving South Farms. The Rolling Stone article that I've quoted before clearly references that he's planned these events to continue into the future, and that this has been a plan that he has had in effect for some time. So while it may need an expansion of a primary use, what's to stop him from applying for an auxiliary use to continue these? And what guarantee do we have going forward that this won't be parked in our backyard on a permanent basis? Because as the other people were speaking, we moved to Morris over 20 years ago. Ben's dad, Dave, sold us this house. We wanted peace and quiet, and we built our backyard around a very structured environment with pools and hot tubs for grandkids. Now we're looking at where we can't go out on a pleasant evening because I'm getting stuck 5 nights a week listening to this music that I don't choose. What's my guarantee going forward that I can invest $100 grand in my house, age here, stay here till the day I die, and not be tormented by whatever Ben wants to play? Can you address those issues?
I will answer the questions that you raised. There is no application on file or that's even been discussed with the board for anything past COVID. I do get the impression that he does have plans to proceed or would like to proceed past COVID. However, we do not have anything specific and even had a discussion of any sort about that, number one. Number two, if he were to try to do this beyond the current approval that he has, he would have to make what's known as a planned development district application that basically allows him to create his own zone on his property. He writes zoning regulations to fit his use, and then the Plaza sends that to the board. The board sets a public hearing. It is sent off to, we hold public hearings on the matter. That is, these public hearings require that notices be sent to all the adjoining landowners, and such that there would be notice if such a public hearing happened. That would come in the form of a certified letter to your house. That would be, if that were to be approved, then there would be a second application that would need to be made that would require another public hearing. It was an application for a special exception to allow for the specific use that will happen on the property and outline the site plan and all that aspect of it. That again requires a public hearing that requires the same level of notice. So there is no way that he could make an application like the current one or go through like the current thing that happened to produce what's out there without anybody knowing about it. So no, this is not going to continue into the future unless something drastically changes and it makes through several pretty high hurdles to get there. Scott, are you still there? You're next. Scott Simmons?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so a lot of the questions that I had surrounded around the facts of the matter, okay? So it's my understanding that the board has made a mistake in granting the application, okay? Can you elaborate on that mistake? Can you tell us what you're gonna do to rectify the mistake? Because the way I see it, you really ought to have rectified it right when you realized the mistake had happened. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I can. Basically, in a way, the motion that was made on the 16th of September that basically made that determination that the application should not have been approved. The application was made based on COVID-19, and Ben had the impression and gave the impression to the zoning enforcement officer that, because he had that impression that the executive order for outdoor dining would apply to any commercial use, including his. Therefore, he had the right to relocate his business outdoors to rather than having indoor concerts, to have them outdoors. And, put them anywhere on his property that would properly fit and allow him to lay out seating in a socially distanced format that meets the state regulations, which he has done. What happened was, when this was actually reviewed and when it came to greater attention to the board and such, and its actual layout, because the layout of the plan didn't even include, because of the COVID regulations have a very limited requirement. You don't need to do the same formal application. If something like this, like he did a PDD and a special exception application, he would have to probably present a traffic study to analyze what the impact of the traffic would be on the property. We probably wouldn't approve anything where he would have people drive 3/4 of a mile up Higby Road to get to the entrance to the property. It would have to be.
David, can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we understand what happened. Okay. But my question is, why did not the board rectify the situation once they realized that an error had been made? Okay.
Yes.
Hang on, one more thing. And what is it you're going to do going forward? Are we going to have to put up with another 4 weeks of concerts? Or are we going to have to take some legal action here? Because quite frankly, we're pretty upset about it. Are you going to do anything going forward? Or, within the next, day or so? Or are we going to have to put up with the next concerts until November? Or, and what's beyond November? Is this going to go on until that so-called COVID order has been lifted? Because quite frankly, that COVID order, as you admitted, is not applicable to what's going on here. So are you folks going to do the right thing and end this thing soon? We're listening for an end. Maybe the end, last concert is November. What are you going to do here? Or are we going to have to take some legal action?
Scott, basically, one of the things that the motion that was made on the 16th recognized was that, when we made that motion, he had more than 20 concerts lined up. He had tickets sold, mostly sold out events. We could have ceased and desisted him. If we issued a cease and desist order at that time, several things would have happened. Number one, Ben would have appealed that decision to the Morris Zoning Board of Appeals at a minimum. He might have even gone right to court. That's his prerogative. The Zoning Board of Appeals would have then had to make a similar decision that we made. Then if it went to court, the court would eventually take a look at it. And the operative point in that is eventually. It would have turned out that no matter what we did, that you would be listening to what you're listening to right now if we ceased and desisted him on the 16th, because at best it would have gotten past the Zoning Board of Appeals at that point in time, and it would be, and if they didn't support him and they had, voted, if they had supported the cease and desist, it would be on its way to court. And it's not likely that a court will put a stay on him, especially when he's got the number of the money invested in what he's got invested right now. There's a term called municipal estoppel. Municipal estoppel says that once, let me finish, Scott. You asked me a question and I'm answering.
Okay.
And I can mute you.
Sorry, yep. Oh, sorry, yep.
But municipal estoppel says that if a town official or the town approves something, that, and the person goes out and builds that something that is approved, that the town cannot tell him not to do it because they told him he could do it and he invested all this money, or she invested all his money, or the group or invested all this money. And therefore, if you did stop them, you would be liable for their losses and whatever loss that happened because of that. And I know somebody said to me that, why didn't you just cease and desist them and deal with the expense? Insurance would cover that. Well, that reason we didn't do that is because we're twofold. Number one, that this does have an end date. This is not a permanent thing. It'll survive as long as that COVID regulation that it was approved under survives, despite what Ben has said in his letter. And number two, that while we don't seem to be making much progress, at least we can see if we can't dial back. I mean, I know that I live on Benton Road. I live like not even a mile from the thing. And for some reason, the noise seems to be louder going back behind the stage and going forward to the stage, based on what I'm hearing.
Interrupt. I appreciate what you have to say, but I just wanted to follow up. You said that this thing has an end date. Now, is that end date dictated by the end of the COVID decree when Lamont lifts that order? Because he's not likely to lift it anytime soon because it has to do with restaurants. And Mr. Peletsky doesn't have a restaurant. It has
the answer to your question. Well, let me answer one question at a time, please, Scott, because I'm letting you have the floor, and nobody else has raised their hand. So they're giving you the floor, and you're doing a good job.
No, there are several people whose hands are raised, David. Thank you.
Well, I can see the Rennas.
Yep, and
on my
also in
screen.
the comments, Lori also has asked to have her hand raised.
Let me at least answer the question. And the answer is, at the moment, the executive order is scheduled to run out in February. I know it is not unlikely, it's quite possible that it will be extended past February. At a minimum, yes, it'll be run to the end of the month. I doubt it's going to run too far into November, December. I just can't imagine it lasting that long. But the bottom line is that, even if this thing went to court and the COVID executive order was extended another year, just because it was approved, it would probably run through next year. It won't run past that COVID decree, the COVID executive order.
Excuse me,
Executive
Mr.
Order
Chairman.
7M.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt, point of order.
I am sorry. You are not next. If you could raise your hand, I'd be glad to have you speak when we're done. Elizabeth, what was the comment that you have in the chat, please, from Lori Kibbe, please?
She
Eileen?
asked she was raising her hand. There's numerous pages of chats, but why don't we let Lori speak because she's tried raising her hand in the chat twice.
All right, let me just,
Okay.
can I finish with David? All right.
Scott,
I just
I'm
wanna-
sorry. I've given you more than 5 minutes of our time.
Okay, I just want to
I've
say, I
tried
appreciate
to answer all your questions, and I will turn it over to Lori. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Hi, David. Thank you. So I have two agendas. I actually have three. I really need to have, and I don't understand why this commission cannot provide to this community Ben's previous conditions to South Farms. Why is that? Why can we not have those?
Well, part of the problem is your question was misunderstood initially.
But it was clarified, David. So initially,
Yeah,
okay, but it's been clarified. So tell me why, since Bob Mack said in the last meeting, he clearly stated that he had reviewed all those conditions and approvals. I believe he said approvals for South Farms. Okay, so I want to go on the record is that multiple people stated last night they have asked for those and have not received them. Okay, I think it's unacceptable that that has not happened. But more importantly, I do not understand how the chairman of planning and zoning basically can sit here and tell this community that we are going to live with this until the governor's executive order is over. So basically what I'm hearing is Ben can pretty much do whatever he wants between now and God only knows when COVID is going to be over. And as a medical professional, I'm here to tell you, we don't know when that's going to end. How is it that this town could say to us, suck it up, Buttercup, because this is the way it is, when you all made a mistake? There is no reason why this commission cannot implement a cease and desist order saying that after November 2nd, you no longer can do this. And you're going to tell me that this town is going to allow for people not to sleep, for children to hide in their closets, for grandparents not to see their grandchildren, for people to be shut in their house during an extraordinary, unprecedented time? That's what I'm hearing for you. And then the third thing is, I'd like to ask Tony a question, if I may.
You can ask the board the question, and
Okay,
I will.
that's fine. Yep. So I'd like to know if Tony has been to the concert.
I have not been to any of the concerts.
So you approved something without even going there and looking or observing or anything? No one did, correct?
That is the COVID regulation in play. It doesn't, it's expedited approval. It was not meant for something like this, and you can see.
David, we've heard this for the last 3 weeks. We're spinning our wheels.
I'm sorry.
Spinning our wheels. We want to know what this town is going to do to eliminate the suffering that is literally happening. Are you going to do something? Yes or no? I'm done. Thank you. You can answer the question, please.
Yes, there are two questions that were answered. Number one is that can we issue a cease and desist as of 11/1/2020? Our attorney says no, we cannot. But what we can do is we could issue a cease and desist effective in February, which is when the current COVID regulation is scheduled to expire. That we can do.
Well, can you, somebody
Number one.
please do
Number-
something to give us some hope? We need some hope.
I answered question number one. Number two, our hands are tied. I mean, if the noise is as bad as it is, I suggest making a complaint to Torrington Area Health. While Torrington Area Health does not have sound regulations, there are state regulations that they enforce. Technically, we do not enforce sound. That is Torrington Area Health's bailiwick.
Torrington Area Health cannot do anything, just so you know. I checked with them.
You did? Okay.
Yep.
But they said they accept complaints, but okay.
They gave it back to you and to,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, will you allow access via phone?
Would you raise your hand, please? There are other people speaking and there's somebody ahead of you.
there's
your
no,
hand.
there's
Oh,
no
you're on the
hand
phone.
to raise, David. I can't find the hand. so-
Sorry. Okay.
Phone.
Let me, okay,
I'm
sir.
on a phone.
Will you please,
Like to
sir, will you please, sir? Elizabeth Kearney is next. When she is done, I will let you speak.
Hi, David.
The
I-
Rennas are also have their hands up. David.
Elizabeth Kearney, please.
Hi, I just wanted to point out, I work for a state college and right now we are under COVID rules and we are primarily online with very few on-ground classes. And we are planning fully for the spring to be doing the same thing, which means online, on ground, very few on ground. So it's leading me to feel that the COVID orders will be extended. And I think this is the frustration you're hearing right now is, well, I'm sure Ben is having a fun time up there rolling around. The rest of us are, you know, our nights, our weekends, any time that we would spend out time are now being harmed and our property values are going to tank. So do we get a tax break? There's a whole bunch of ways, you know, things that are going to come up and people are rightfully so angry. And these things come a point because it feels like we're not getting any solution. All right. There's nobody that says, okay, yes, when COVID is over, oh, we'll stop the concerts. Meanwhile, Ben has set up this whole thing and he's not going to let it go. You know, because let's face it, it's a hell of a lot easier to have a concert to deal with brides. Okay. Because I've dealt with brides before. All right. So he's just going to want to keep on going. So, and all your ideas sound great about stopping it, but nothing stops it now. So forgive us if we don't sound real hopeful here. You know, I
No,
appreciate
I-
your position.
I totally understand. I know. I'm not trying to any way belittle you, and I'm sorry to the man who I'm going to let speak first. Not apologizing for letting him speak. I want him to speak. I just was not thinking at the time because I'm focused on order on this and missed the fact that he has no way to raise his hand. And your interjecting was your only way to do so, and I get that. Would you please just do one favor for me? Again, one additional favor for me would be to state your name so for the record so we know who is speaking because we have no way of knowing who you are without that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to do that. My name is Pearlie Grimes. I'm an attorney with Kramer and Anderson in Litchfield. I'm calling on behalf of several concerned Morris residents who I represent. I'd just like to say that you need to consider the following. The ZEO made an error, number one. It was in part based upon the applicant's claim that EO7MM applied. And it was also based on the claim that is on the application, which is I've read, which was granted, by the way, on July 8th, 2020. He also claimed on the application that this use was, quote, permitted as of right under the zoning regulations. And he represented, apparently, to your ZEO that he was okay under EO7MM. Attorney Byrne has now said EO7MM does not apply. So everybody acknowledges now, this instant, on the record, that zoning does not apply, And E does not allow this, excuse me, zoning applies. It doesn't allow this use. And the applicant has erroneously assumed that EO 7MM applies. So he made a mistake, maybe. And if he made a mistake and the ZEO made a mistake that it was allowed in this zone as of right, then that's two mistakes. Why do I say that? Because the issue of equitable estoppel is an equitable remedy, which means you look at the action of both parties. You don't just look at the action of the municipality. You look at what was presented to the municipality by the other side, and you see if the other side made a mistake as well. It doesn't have to be intentional. He made a mistake in claiming EO 7MM applied, although I see there's some communications from Mr. Byrne, your attorney, who says that doesn't appear to be the case. But in any event, even if he did make an innocent mistake, that would block any claim that he has against the town for municipal estoppel, because municipal estoppel requires what we call clean hands. You can't be in equity wrong and ask the other guy who's also wrong to stop and I'm going to sue you for what you did, but you can't stop me. It doesn't work that way. Joint errors were made, if we're being charitable, and now it needs to stop. And if he brings an action against the community should defend it. It should not be up to citizens to have to bring a separate action, although my clients have considered that and are considering that. It's up to the municipality which made the mistake and the applicant who made the mistake to resolve this. So what I suggest to you is that you enter a cease and desist order with a date. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but if it was November 1st, that would seem to make some sense. And you don't have to say that there's anything more than that and then see what happens. And then there's light at the end of the tunnel for the neighbors. And Mr. Poletsky can do what he thinks he can do, knowing that he made a mistake by claiming on the application that this was allowed as a matter of right, and by also asserting to your ZEO that 7MM applied. And I point out that the application doesn't say that 7MM applied. All it says is it may apply. So what does that mean? That means Mr. Poletsky was warned by your ZEO that it may apply. Your ZEO didn't say it does apply, fortunately. And so Mr. Poletsky knew or should have known that there was an issue with 7MM, and he did not come to you with clean hands should he bring any action. That's all I have for this evening. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you, Mr. Chairman, or those others of the commission might have.
Thank you, Pearlie. Does anybody on the commission have a question for Pearlie?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll move myself.
Pearlie, thank you. I'm sorry for cutting you off. I just took me a second, but
Not a
I
problem.
appreciate your input.
Not a problem. Thank
And
you.
I will ask Steve, I will ask Steve, and if this case two wrongs make it even wronger, and rectify the wrong in making it right. So, I hear you. And
Can I make the comment about the chat quick? Can people please be civil on the chat? Because that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is not about, we're a community. And we have a right to disagree. And the people who hear the noise and have issues with the noise and other aspects of the use have a right to express their opinions, get their feelings out, just as the people who support the use. I mean, it would be nice if it would work, but I don't get the impression it's headed in that direction. But we will see with time, and it's not I will, after we're done with public comments, I will ask the board as to what they want to do, if there's any change here. And I will, as I said, I will bring up that whole question of the two wrongs make it possible to put the end to this before it's too late. So that, but anyway, our attorney has said that it's reasonable to do a cease and desist based on February of 2021 on, because that is technically the end of the current executive order. That gives him plenty of time to get through whatever he has lined up and deal with the fact that he won't have something right next year, which he shouldn't be planning on anyway, based on the rules as they stand today. Any other comments from the public or chat that's not abusive and derogatory and inflammatory? Tony or Eileen?
There's multiple pages of comments. Let's see here. There was some discussion about whether the fact that none of the emails or documents were attached to the agenda. However, it looks like Doug, commission member, was able to provide the answer to that question, that as long as they are provided for the public in the meeting minutes, then we are okay, because this isn't a public hearing. Go ahead, Doug, I'm sorry.
Just as a clarification, I did find as part of the governor's order regarding online meetings, it does say that those materials are supposed to be provided, quote, prior to, during, and after. So it is definitely a footfall to have not provided the materials online immediately before the meeting. It's not a 24-hour. You're supposed to try to get them 24 hours in advance. But as the governor's order that I'm looking at now, to the extent feasible, they should be submitted 24 hours prior to the meeting and posted to the agency's website for public inspection prior to, during, and after the meeting. So going forward, I think we should try to do that.
Yes, and we have been, Doug. And everything that was read into the minutes on the meeting into the meeting on the 16th and the 21st have all been posted to the website, including Ben's comments and actually additionally all the emails that I have received, and I have another batch that I'll be uploading over the next couple of days, including the one that I just read into the record from Ben Pawlowski.
Yeah, the only catch is that it does need to be prior to the meeting. So it could be 5 minutes before the meeting, but it does need to be available to people. Just imagine, like, if you were to show up at a meeting, at an actual physical meeting, they would hand out paper documents to you potentially, right? So they're saying basically the rule says that it should be prior to the meeting. So the person who was in the comments, although he made a number of other extraneous comments, I have to admit that he was correct in that.
All right. Thank you, Doug. This is Eileen again. So Deborah White writes, South Farms continues to increase the frequency as more concerts are being added per high demand, in quotes. I am very concerned about the number of events and the intent to continue into perpetuality. 500 participants means 250 cars. He monitored the cars on 109. He needs to sit on my front porch on Higbee Road. I wouldn't even mind if it wasn't so often. Let's be sure P&Z that we get this right in the future. There's more discussion about the change of the rules, asking for the link. Burke Gibney says that Scott Municipal Estoppel. Lori says that she was raising her hand again, which I believe we've already addressed that. Someone named iPad wrote, the P&Z messed up people. Burke says iPad seems to me the CEO messed up, not the commission per se. Elizabeth Kearney said if COVID continues in the spring, these concerts will continue. iPad said, I also agree how we can get a tax break for farm use when his land is no longer used for farm purposes, no animals at all raised on the properties.
Excuse me, Eileen, could iPad identify yourself with your name? Because I don't want to take comments unless I know, we need a name if we take a comment. So does iPad lend their name to the comment anywhere?
I have not seen it, so I won't read any more from them then.
Well, until you get their name, please.
Yep.
And if you get your name,
Yep.
read anything else and
All
include your
right.
name, please.
Burke Gibney says that's correct, Elizabeth. They can continue until the executive order expires. If it's extended for however long it is, he can continue the concerts. Edward Halen says concert site is being hayed. From M. Dallies, he said, Scott, I didn't see your windows shaking. Well, that's not nice. Burke Gibney said, Lori, the answer is because the town CEO issued him a permit. Edward Halen says, people are outside enjoying music. How about all the people that enjoy it? M. Dallas is here on Slab Meadows enjoying the music. CJ said zoning commission has ability to put conditions on the approval and could also have turned it down. There was no automatic approval due to COVID. Ben would have the ability to appeal your decision. Do not say that the executive order had to be granted. Then there's instructions on how to raise a hand. Edward Halen says the Ridgefield Playhouse has outdoors concerts too. George Meckies, again, I apologize if I'm saying anyone's name incorrectly, says, have people had their properties reassessed or is this just an assumption? Burke Gibney says, Lori, they could issue a cease and desist, but Ben will no doubt appeal. And when it eventually goes to court, Ben will win. I have no doubt that court would apply the doctrine of municipal estoppel to the case. It's a clear-cut case where it would apply. So even if a C&E is issued, the concerts will still continue as long as the executive order is in effect. And the town taxpayers will be liable for any damages Mr. Pilecki suffers. You might owe his legal expenses too, in addition to the town's legal expenses. Let's see here. This is from iPad. Edward Halen says people are selling their homes for more than asking price. Joe Stack, it seems like the town made the mistake, so maybe the town mitigate our damages. When damages are done and the people who have been damaged can't be made whole, the only way to mitigate is with payments, and being the town made the mistake, how would the town make us whole again up to now? Edward Halen says, want a different opinion, get a different lawyer. Burke Gibney says, this legal argument is a huge stretch that I highly doubt would be successful. Back and forth asking who's a lawyer and who's not being nice to people. Burke says, Sandra, I do have a law degree and I understand exactly the legal argument Pearlie is making. I think it's a weak argument, but that would lose in court. So let's see here. Oh, Lori's now saying she has a question, so she has her hand raised. And I also see that there's two other people ahead of her.
Rena's, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I'll take you first. I will take Sandra second. I'll take Lori third and Joel Skilton fourth. Because Sandra's had her name up for a while, hand up for a while too. If you can unmute yourself.
I did.
Mr. Rena. Okay, go ahead.
I did. Okay, it sounds like everybody's going around and around and around here. And, you know, who's right, who's wrong, and what can we do about it, and how can we stop it? But if Ben had any concern about this town, as people think he does, number one, if he knows people are complaining, if he knows there's a problem with the decibels, as we call it, we just know it's just loud volume. Why doesn't he just make sure that every event is turned down? People that are sitting 20 feet away or 40 feet away can hear just fine. Why do we have to hear it a half a mile away in our houses? If he was concerned with us, that would be taken care of immediately, and it has not, and he knows we're complaining. It's a simple solution, isn't it? Secondly, it looks like he invested an awful lot of money on that hill, so it doesn't seem like he wants it to go anywhere anytime soon. So as far as I'm concerned, we do have to do something. We can't leave it up to COVID because, like the nurse said, this COVID can go on till next September. We don't know what's going to happen or what the stipulations are to continue calling it COVID, whether there's lessening of masks or whatever it is. As long as you got that headline of COVID, he can do whatever he wants, it seems. And it doesn't seem like there's any viable end to everybody that's complaining about the noise, even though the people on the west side of Morris can't hear it. You probably can't even hear it in the same distance on the other side of that mountain that he's playing on because it's back feeding all the way over to here and further down 109. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of running around and spinning around but it all comes down to, does Ben really care how his town, as he calls it, feels? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and your patience with us. Sandra, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grimes, Attorney Grimes. I think he gave us the biggest hope here. And based on what he said about two errors, two mistakes being made, and therefore equitable estoppel perhaps not applying, and this E077MM not being valid for an excuse, so to speak, I would hope that the board would very much consider what Attorney Grimes suggested we do, and at least it would be a step in the right direction towards some resolution of this, because as pointed out, I don't see that Mr. Poletsky is going to voluntarily do anything. I would caution too, you keep mentioning that there's a cease and desist that has to go to February. I would not base any cease desist on the extension of the executive order, because it can just keep being extended. And if there were errors made, why does it need to go along with that? Because they were wrong in the first place. That's all. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
David, this is Eileen. I just want to, I just wrote this in chat that if the chat continues to be uncivil, we will remove that function. And then if anybody has anything to say, they will have to speak. So just as a reminder, if it's not something that is nice or in regards to what we are currently talking about, please do not put it in the chat because again, this is a public record and everything you write is being read into record. And this is a small town and we want to keep this as civil as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And it will be on the record. Lori, you are next. Joel after that, and then Jeff.
Thank you, David. So I was wondering if Mr. Grimes, Attorney Grimes, could repeat, do a recap of what he just said for all of us.
Since I cut him off, if he wants to summarize before we go to Joel, I'm glad to take his comment.
Thank you. Appreciate it. There's just so much
Thank you,
banter.
Laura.
I just want it to be clear in my head. Okay, that's really why I'm asking.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And Lori's yielding her time to the Honorable Pearlie Grimes. If you're still there, Pearlie, you got the floor. I don't see your number right now.
I think he left.
Oh, wow. Well,
I think he's
let
still
me-
here, but he's on mute right now. I think that was his number 485, but just letting everyone know.
Let's see. I don't see his number anymore. Oh, 485.
His number is there. Here he comes. Thanks.
Okay, Pearlie, you have the floor. Lori yielded her time to you. No, he muted him, so. Yeah.
Grimes,
Oh, shit.
I'm told I'm unmuted, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I'm trying to ask you to unmute, and I seem to be muting you. I did not mean to do that. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, so to answer the lady's question, municipal estoppel is an action based in equity, and they have to look at all the facts on both sides as to how this occurred. If some person intentionally knows or should have known that what he or she was doing was an error, or makes an error in that respect, then that person would not be able to avail himself or herself of the action of municipal estoppel, because it's a requirement that you have clean hands before you assert municipal estoppel. Clean hands simply means, in layperson terminology, that you didn't do anything wrong. Here, it appears from what your attorney, Mr. Byrne, has said, that Mr. Poletsky asserted that Executive Order 7MM applied because it was a restaurant, whereas it's been made clear, I guess, by Attorney Byrne that 7MM doesn't apply. So that's the error that Mr. Poletsky made. Also, the other error that Mr. Poletsky made was on the application. If you look at the application, which is dated and approved on July 8th, 2020, you will see that he checked the box marking that this activity, this pavilion and stage, were permitted under the zoning regulations as of right. So that's a misrepresentation on the application that he presented to the ZEO. So there's two errors that the applicant made, A, assuming that EO 7MM applied, and B, asserting that it was permitted under the regs. And we all know, I've looked at the regs, this is not permitted as of right under the regulations. I hope that's explained it. Thank you.
Well, I did miss the use of right aspect of it. Thank you, Lori and Pearlie. I'm going to discuss that with Steve too, just to line it up from, regardless of what we do here tonight. But Joel, you are next. Unmute yourself, sir. You're still muted. Go ahead. You should be. You are unmuted. We're not hearing you, Joel. You're muted again. You're muted again. Somebody's speaking. We'll try to come back to you, Joel. I know you've done this before, so I'm surprised you're having a problem. You keep trying, and I'll turn it over to Jeff, please.
How am I doing with unmuting?
You're good.
Okay. My name is Jeff Poletsky. First, I guess I'd like to speak to Attorney Grimes' comments. I would wonder why it would be up to the applicant to know the regulations. Isn't that why we take our applications to the ZEO? So I'm not sure why you would consider his hands dirty, or however it was said. But I'd also like to say, speaking of the support of South Farms, I think we all need a little history lesson here. I'm not sure that Ben had ever intended on running this farm. He was forced into a decision a long time ago that I'm sure he would have rather not make. And everybody's forgetting, he could have easily hired a developer, and we could be looking at 200, 300, 400, maybe 500 people. I think our town, I can't be sure, but I'm under the impression that we're far under the threshold, the state's threshold for low-income housing here. And I'm not sure there's anything that we could actually do to stop a significant portion. I think that property probably has more road frontage than any other property in town. And with the current state of single-family houses, I'm sure that could be developed relatively easy. Also, it's just unfortunate that everybody can't have a little bit of tolerance while this is going on. Everybody, I hear these comments, lack of consideration, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but lack of consideration is the furthest thing for the reasons that I've just stated. You know, he was backed into a corner. I mean, there's no way he could have known that there was going to be a global pandemic and that his business was going to be turned upside down. You know, I'm sure you folks have an impression of certain things, and you can't be more wrong about being able to support a business. It eventually, you know, money runs out, and it would fail. And he's obviously using this to get himself through until things can turn around. And I just think we all need to be aware of that. And I really think people should be thinking of that and supporting, not as negative as everyone is.
Thank you,
I'm
Jeff.
a professional public speaker, so I hope I got my point across, but that's all I have to say.
Nobody here really is. We do what we can. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Can you speak yet, Joel? No.
How do I remove myself?
Don't I can mute you. I guess not. Well, give it a shot then, Joel. You are unmuted, but I'm not hearing you.
Joel, perhaps maybe you should try dialing in on your cell phone to the phone number, and then we can hear your comments that way.
Okay, well, Joel dials in. Anita, you can have the floor, please.
Hi, thank you. So just a couple things came to mind after I spoke at the Board of Selectmen last night, and I just have a few small comments that I just wanted to put out there for everyone listening. I looked over the documents that were attached to your agenda for the September 16th meeting, and one thing I noticed was the write-up from the sound engineers that were sent to adjust the volume, because it looked like Mr. Poletsky was acknowledging a complaint and was trying to adjust the volume at that point. And I just have to say that until everyone within the immediate radius chimes in and tells you that they can no longer hear it or are no longer affected, then it's not working, because, you know, someone can make dozens of adjustments as a show of good faith. You know, I'm not here to comment on his character, but saying something was fixed or thinking something was fixed doesn't mean that the neighbors are actually satisfied. So first small point is I'd suggest that the town would need to properly survey all the neighbors to fairly gauge this, and giving priority to the immediate radius, of course, because if I can hear it 2 miles away, then I'm thinking you would need to go out several miles. And also regarding the outpouring of support, which I mean, I've been watching Facebook trying to get any sense of an end date for this. And I see on Facebook, basically every music fan in Connecticut is in support. So again, until every neighbor within the immediate radius is satisfied, then South Farms can get support from millions of people around the country. And I think we can agree that it shouldn't matter, unfortunately. And a lot of people don't really know what's going on in my neighborhood. They're being tolerant, or they're being good neighbors, or they think it's just a fall series, or they haven't been home lately. They think it's going to end. They assume it's going to end, and they might not even know about the meetings that we're having right now. So last thing, if Mr. Poletsky is going to really kind of use the word subsequent years, if I heard you correctly as you read that email from him, Mr. Weig, I also wanted to suggest that these meetings continue with greater frequency, because I believe you will hear from much more of the community as they become aware of the gravity of the situation and kind of what's at stake here, if, you know, due to COVID, et cetera. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you, Anita. I'm sorry. I think that's how your name is pronounced. I apologize.
That's all right. Thank you.
Joel, I saw a picture of your phone. Can you speak? No? Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get to you.
Mr. Skilton,
Sandra
can you
Bertustini.
type comments into the chat for me to read? Okay, he's shaking his head
please do
yes.
so. Sandra,
Hi, this is Sophia.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, I would like just in general to state that as I have experienced migraines from these concerts, we have heard from people it is affecting their children who are special needs. I know several people who they can no longer enjoy their own properties, and this is a group of, I'd say, it has to be at least 30 to 40 people, if not half of all of Morris, that I am getting rather tired of being asked to consider for Ben. I understand it is very difficult to run a small business during COVID. I am very aware of that. However, when his solution affects so many of us, I think that there is a point where consideration must end. Additionally, in response to the relative statement that he would then turn to affordable housing, I have to say I would much prefer that to the concerts. I don't view offering the housing to those who might need it in Morris. Morris is not a particularly wealthy town, as I think we all know. It's not as if that would be such a disruption, probably honestly, as much as these concerts are. Thank you.
And thank you, Sophia. I appreciate your comment. I see. Do you have a full statement from Joel or anything to start with on Joel, Eileen?
No, I do not. There are some more comments though. After I had, let's see here. There were some unkind comments so that I didn't write.
Yeah, please get those.
Yeah.
I don't think we need that.
Burke Gibney says, just remember Mr. Grimes is representing clients, not offering legal advice to the commission. Edward Halen, didn't they have outdoor dining and amplified music before? M. Dally's, Jeff's not wrong. Edward Halen, true. Elizabeth Kearney, then why are plans spoken of that mentioned music venue for years? Burke Gibney, very important consideration for all Morris residents. I'm sure selling his land to a developer is the last thing Mr. Pilecki wants to do, but if you make it difficult for him to operate a viable business and to try to stop the concerts the town ZEO permitted, then I think he may be forced to sell his land. Then the town will end up with a huge affordable housing development. I doubt anyone wants to see that happen. Elizabeth Kearney, at least housing wouldn't play music till 10:30. Edward Halen, consider housing on that property, taxes through the roof for education. CJ, 50 new homes will bring in much more tax base than a property disguised as farming. And M. Daly has identified herself as Madison Daly. Thank you, Madison. That is all.
Okay. I believe Sandra's hand is up because it was up before for Sophia. I'm lowering her hand. If she needs to speak again, she can raise it again. Jeff? Unmute yourself.
I am. I just want to clarify, I don't have any trouble with low-income housing either. I'm a builder. It'd be great for me. It could potentially generate lots of revenue because I'm not sure if you guys know what a defunct farm looks like, but if you'd like to come by 95 Thomaston Road, you can all see what happens when the family money runs out and the property taxes on the buildings. You know, we're in 490, but that doesn't help us with our buildings. You want to see what happens when all the money runs out. You're all welcome to come here. And you know, I'm at the point where I might develop the property, so it's not a unrealistic solution, believe me. That's all.
Thank you.
No,
I think at this point,
we do have Joel Skilton's comment.
oh, please.
All right, so this is from Joel Skilton, excuse me. Other than having a zoning permit based on inaccurate information, could the zoning board tell me what the farm, in quotes, is in compliance with?
A farm itself is a use of right in any property greater than 3 acres in the town of Morris. Actually, I think in any property period, but I may have misunderstood his question because I don't think that's what he meant. if somebody has a better idea, I'd be glad to try to answer that, but, and we'll wait, and if he adds more to the chat, I'm perfectly happy to take that across. Again, this is Dave Wig. I'd like to say at this point, since we don't have anything more at the moment, I'd like the board to sit and tell me if there's any thoughts that we have on the matter. Just speak, Doug.
I'm very conflicted about this, but just from a technical point of view, I think that it's clear that at this point, he's on notice that his current use is in fact not covered by the executive order. Does everybody pretty much agree with that? I mean, that's been pretty clearly communicated to him.
Yeah.
So the real question then, if under the sort of the theory of municipal estoppel, and I think that I was actually looking for, I think I may have joined after you guys got the advice from the town's lawyer, but what I'm understanding is that if he has sort of sufficiently long notice, that he's going to be able to, wind down his series, and he's not going to actually suffer any damages. And then I think that also Mr. Grimes' comments are well taken, in that, it sounds like he may not, again, it's not if he made a legitimate mistake, it's one thing, but if he sort of came into this sort of knowing, or at some point sort of knew that this was not it was not covered by the executive order, he could have started mitigating at that point, and not after receiving a cease and desist. So, I think that my current leaning on this is in the direction of picking a date sufficiently far out for this to end definitively, or at least for us to take to attempt to end it definitively. But it's going to be an opportunity for the currently planned series to be wound down. And then certainly, even if he were to prevail on a theory of municipal estoppel, his damages would be fairly limited, right? Because you can only, once you're on notice that something is not in fact permitted, then from that point on, you can't keep making more investments and putting more money into the thing that you're not allowed to do. And so there we go. That's my thought on the subject.
Thank you, Doug. So David Jeremiah, do you have any opinions on the matter?
Actually, I agree with Doug. I think we should put some kind of date on it.
Veronica?
David, I think we do need to put a date, but can I ask a question of the people so when this comes before us again, after COVID is over, Ben will submit a new application. I want to know from the public, if there were less concerts and this was not an every night thing, would you feel differently?
Raise your hand. Click the raise hand feature. Those of you at least who are online, whether that would change your feelings on the matter. Or Skype. That would change your opinion.
I don't have an unmute feature here. I don't know why. But I would say if the stage was moved in some regard, and I do want to comment that I wish Mr. Pilecki well, and I totally want him to succeed, but not at the expense of so many of us that are having to deal with this. Absolutely being less frequent would really help, but it needs to be, the stage really needs to be moved. So that's my opinion, and that's the answer to that, and thank you.
All right, so thank you all for saying that. So it's basically, if it was quieter, less concerts, and farther into the commercial zone, this might not be a giant issue.
If it was down near the barn, it would absolutely, if you had it down near the barn, there is, where he had his Sunday kind of events and scaled it back and maybe, as COVID ends, put it more indoors. Absolutely, I would support it, It's the hilltop blowing everybody away kind of thing. And 7 days a week, or not 7, but 5 days a week that I know it really affects me.
Yeah,
David, we do have Lori Kibbe saying that she's raising her hand. I don't know if that is in agreement to what Veronica is saying or because she would like to speak.
Two things. I do have Elizabeth Kearney and I have Lori. Since I was kind of slow in getting to Lori at the start, I will let Lori have the first dibs and I'll go to Elizabeth second.
I don't believe right now discussing what we might do in the future is a good idea. I don't see how that affects why we are here today. We are here today because the quality of our life for some, and no one wishes Ben ill will at all. But we are not here to discuss future possibilities. Has nothing to do with the responsibility of the town commissions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Before I get to you, Doug, Elizabeth, do you want to speak? Elizabeth Kearney?
Hi. Before I heard Lori say what she just said, I was thinking, oh, maybe that would be okay. But you know what? She does have a valid point. I'm sort of feeling like we're held hostage here. We have people saying, oh, well, would you rather it was low-income housing, and what if we developed it and all that? Like, is that a veiled threat that, if you don't get your own way, you're going to stamp your little feet and build houses all over the place? That being said, if you laid in some really tough restrictions on this, such as these concerts don't start until June, they end at the end of September. There's only 10 or 12. They can't be 5 nights a week. They're moved down by the White Barn, not in the residential zoned area, then you might find that people were more open to supporting this idea. Okay, that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you for your feedback to my question. I appreciate it.
In terms of furthering this, my thoughts are that I think I agree with Lori. I think that was Lori who said that, look, first let's set an end date on this thing. Okay, let's set out where this is going to come to an end under the current mistaken advice that was provided by Tony. And then once we have that end date in place, I think then we need to start having conversations. If there's going to be a conversation about, could this happen in the future under conditions? I think that needs to happen once that end date has been finalized and put in place. And anything after that end date needs to be very carefully considered, and we need to really think through what the conditions are going to be.
And I know you're new to the board, Doug. Veronica and Eileen know if you really want to take the power of being a member of the board and a voting member of the board, you do have the ability at any time, even when we're in the middle of public comment, to make a motion. That is a tremendous power.
So this is Eileen. I've heard testimony from the community. I've heard what the commission members have talked about. I stand by what I said at the last meeting, that municipal estoppel applies. If we, even by putting an end date to his permit, we are going against the executive order. The executive order states that it is until the executive order is raised. I don't know if Ben would be willing to submit to an end date. Maybe it would be something we could ask, but I don't know if we can necessarily enforce that.
Yeah, just to be clear, I mean, again, I've sort of seen a summary of what the town lawyer's advice is, and maybe we should go back to the well on that. Okay, but
just a point of information, the town lawyer says that we can set an end date of February 2021.
Which is that
Because
based
that's
upon
when-
when the executive order, but what if the executive order is extended? Then that
Then
date
that would
also gets
probably have to
extended.
Then that probably will have to be extended too.
Right.
But that would still be a statement that the board, if the board wants to communicate that they need to, that we do want to draw a line, if that's the feeling of the board, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't. If that's the feeling of the board, you can do that. Steve has given his opinion that that is acceptable.
Yeah.
Then, David, this is Veronica. I'd like to make a motion to do a cease and desist for February 1st, 2021 for the South Farms Twilight concerts.
I second that.
Additional discussion?
Who was the person who seconded it? Was that you, Doug?
Doug, yes.
Thank you. No, you heard what I said. So, Veronica, what if, for discussion, what if the executive order gets extended past February 21? Are we going to enforce the CNE?
Well, then we would have to reissue it for whatever date.
I would actually, before you say that, okay, I think that that's something you might want to check with the town attorney on, because honestly, I don't think that that's how municipal estoppel works. Okay, I think that you're stopped up to the point of reliance. And if you get, and I think that the reason that he specified a date in February is that that's going to give him ample time to wind down and mitigate his damages. And that I think that's independent of when the executive order actually ends.
For the
His expectation could not have been that the executive order was going to continue indefinitely or in perpetuity.
This is
And
Veronica.
that's a question I will ask of Stephen. Go on, Veronica.
This is Veronica. For the person, I think somebody just typed something about it being, we should ask for legal advice. I'm basing this motion on the legal opinion of our attorney that we already did ask.
But I think that we're sort of, the one area where I think we're speculating is what happens if the executive order gets extended. But my prediction is that that's not actually relevant.
And
they would double check that with the town attorney.
And this is Dave Boyer again. Thank you, Doug. And Pearlie's question of whether, the two wrongs situation has any application in his opinion. Because he's our town attorney, he's the one who has to defend us. And that could potentially roll back that date to a closer time. But I think if he felt that way, he would have said so. But I don't know. So I will ask that question. I'm not going to assume anything.
And I think that Mr. Grimes' point was well taken as well with respect to the fact that it wasn't just oh yeah, that will be great. It's like, well, you may, you may be covered. I think there are a lot of different factors here, and I think that we should go ahead and proceed on the basis of our existing legal advice, that we can set a February end date, and that we should accordingly issue the cease and desist.
Any further discussion? I call the question. The motion is to set a cease and desist for February 1st, 2021. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Are
Any
you an
abstentions?
aye or a nay?
That's
nay.
for aye and nay. I know what she meant. She spoke her opinion. I totally respect that. And I mean, this is not about having unanimity. If we have, I feel very strongly that if we don't 100% agree on it, that if somebody's voting no, well, at least we considered the other side of the coin, and then we, and because Eileen expressed it very well, and she's perfectly capable of presenting opinions, and I very much respect her opinions in addition to that. So we have, and I asked for abstentions and I didn't hear any, so the motion carries. And the cease and desist date is set for the 1st of February 2021. It's understood that we understand in making it that it's likely contingent on the executive order, but yeah, that's and actually just thinking about it,
Should I amend my motion to say it coincides with the executive order?
No.
well, the only thing I would think about it, rather than saying it coincides with the executive order, is adding that the reasons for the cease and desist, which are A, it's not permitted under Executive Order 7MM.
And it's not a permitted use in the zone.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you agree with that in your second, Doug?
Yes, I still second that.
I'll just take the poll again. All those in favor?
Aye. Someone's not happy with that. Would you like me to restate the motion, David?
Yes, restate the motion.
All right, this is Veronica. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a cease and desist for the South Farms Twilight concerts to end February 1st at the end of the executive COVID order, based on the fact that the use is not allowed in the zone.
Or
Or
permitted
an
under
order
the
for that
EO.
matter.
Permitted. I'm sorry, I forgot my whole last train of thought there.
That's fine.
Or permitted,
Under the executive order.
yes, under the executive order, as it is not outdoor dining.
Quick question. If the order is extended,
Scott, we'll answer your question when we're done. It's just a point of order. So all those, any additional discussion on this beyond the public, this has to be the board at this point, though. Scott. No, I hear nothing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions?
I don't hear
Motion
David
carries.
Jeremiah voting. Which way did you vote, David?
Did I?
Motion carried.
I said
Okay,
aye.
Scott, I'll let you.
Oh, aye. Okay, just making sure. Sorry.
I assume silence is not abstention, it's in favor. That's generally the way people
Dave, there's
vote.
concerns in the chat about the motion being made and voted on, and then another motion being made and voted on. I'm just, as a point of information.
Well, we didn't complete the first one.
Well, we basically withdrew the first motion and made a second motion because I've realized that the first motion was not necessarily clear as to why. And
Just wanted to clarify for the public that are discussing it.
yeah. Yes. Because we need to, when we write a letter to Ben stating which Tony will do, we need to state clearly, refer to the motion and what was clearly made. And minutes should read that the motion was made and passed and it was withdrawn. And well, the bottom line is two motions, but the second motion is the one that applies, the one that's more
Elaborated.
That was pretty
Yeah.
clear that was an amendment to the previous motion, so.
I agree.
Scott, did you want to add something? Unmute yourself.
yeah, I just had a question that you were voting on these motions, and I wasn't really clear if you came to that date and the governor had extended it, would that cease and desist be irrelevant at that time?
If worst case, as Veronica said, we'd have to reissue it based on what the date is extended to, if that's still our opinion.
Okay,
at
so
that
in other
point.
words, that if it was extended, then that cease and desist would not occur.
No, that's,
Well,
that's not my understanding.
There's a debate on the board as to what the right answer is. That is a question that will be posed to the town attorney.
Well, that seems a little ambiguous because, I mean, here you are making a motion on a cease and desist, but if the governor extends it, then, well, it's not a cease and desist. It's
Well,
whatever you
we
decide
will
it is.
find, Scott, we're not legal experts. This is something that already has lawyers involved that will probably go to court one way or another. And therefore, we're going to defer to the town attorney to get an opinion before we decide whether, when Veronica said that the motion would have to be adjusted based on COVID, which is the current opinion that we have, or whether Doug's inkling and what Pearlie Grimes implied passed muster in some way, then maybe we might make a different decision if it's warranted.
I love it. Take action, don't take
Okay.
action. Make up your minds, people.
Hey,
Well, I
it's
understand.
your
where
tax
this is
dollars.
going.
It's our tax dollars, Scott. We got to think
I
about it in
understand where
both
this
ways.
is going, and it's exactly going to the lawyers. So, all right.
It doesn't matter because we issue cease and desist, and if Ben doesn't agree with it, he's going to sue. It's going to go to the lawyers one way or another.
Well, you people let us
That's
sit
the
in the mess,
thing.
so it's all yours. Okay.
Well, all we do if we issue cease and desist is we take the onus off of you and Pearlie, and the town puts the bill.
Well, the town made the mistake to begin with. The town ought to rectify it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's where
That's
we
where
are.
it is right now.
That's where we are. Yeah. All right. All right, Dave and gentlemen, ladies, and thank you. And it's unfortunate that we're up against this wall and we all feel this way, but you know, I do appreciate everybody's viewpoint, and I hope somehow this just works itself out. I really do, and I appreciate it.
I do too. That's what I hope from the start. That and the whole point is to manage this that and hope that cooler heads prevail in all of this. But you'll give it time. He's had his heyday, and maybe a little run with COVID. Maybe it won't. Given that we have a cease and desist, this will remain on the agenda. I do not anticipate having a lot of public meeting input like we had tonight and several weeks ago, or at least really the past two meetings that we've discussed this stuff, because we have other business we have to take care of. But basically, that's what we have here is what he signed up for, and he's got approval for that. And he actually has more than what he signed up for in July, because he's going to be able to run till November when it was supposed to run out in October. I know that means more noise for everybody, but and if he can dial it in, at least it'd be a little better. But I understand he hasn't dialed it in since we made the offer to give him a chance to dial it in, and that's what happens. We do have other things on the agenda, and we have a bunch of minutes to approve. Do we want to do that, or do we want to hold that for our Monday meeting, our Tuesday meeting next week?
This is Eileen. I make a motion that we move the minutes to the meeting on Monday.
This is Bill. I will second that.
All those in favor?
Tuesday meeting.
Tuesday
Tuesday
meeting.
Tuesday.
This is, I rescind my previous motion. This is Eileen Arbutus. I make a motion that we move the minutes review and approval to the next regular plan and zoning meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 13th.
Billy Els will
You
second
want
that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Then next item would be
The
Ron Schaefer, other business.
Yep, and we also have Jeff
And
Piletsky on
Jeff
the phone as well.
Piletsky. We have two open and alternate positions. Are you guys interested in being members or alternates? We have one person who has not made a meeting in a long time, and we don't always have even, and we have actually two people who are absent at this, full members are absent at this meeting. So you were full members tonight, you would have been voting members, even though you're an alternate. So being an alternate is not necessarily a bad thing. Ron and Jeff, what are your feelings?
Well, Dave, just as a point of clarification, I know at the last meeting, Ron was able to introduce himself to the board, so we were able to speak to him, but I don't think Jeff has been able to introduce himself to the board.
Well, since Ron has not responded, and I think because Ron expressed interest, we can go ahead. Jeff, I will turn the floor over to you. It looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Piletsky. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Morris. I'm a local contractor. I think I would probably have something positive to add to the board. So at this point, yeah, I'd like to be voted on as an alternate.
And your father was also a member of this board,
Right.
correct?
My father was a very long time member of the board and in holding with family tradition.
And you're a local builder of the town, so you know a lot of the building regulations as well, Jeff.
Right. Yeah. That's.
And I think your
asset.
Your cousin, I think he's technically a cousin. David was also on the board too at one point, I believe, back towards the start, wasn't he?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't David on the board too for a while?
I can't speak to that. I don't remember.
Okay, I think he was towards the beginning.
I just saw a
anyway.
pop up about a conflict of interest, and if I'll rescue myself, I'm not. Had I been on, I would have recused myself. So I don't know that I need rescuing at this point.
Okay, so I understand. I mean, that's something that I'm glad you recognize and you understand the concept of conflict of interest. And you know that if there's a property that you're dealing with, I know you would recuse yourself too. I understand. That's the way this thing works. And it's actually, and for some of the new members who may not be familiar with this, conflict of interest is something that is not necessarily from your point of view, it's what other people see as being a conflict of interest. It's perception that matters, not fact in that. So, and I've had many discussions with board members. I can't make you recuse yourself, but to protect yourself and the town, that's what's expected.
No, of course. So I just wanted to speak to that comment. I just caught it at the very end. It popped up on the bottom. I'm not sure who made it, nor does it matter, but.
I understand.
David, this is Veronica. I'd like to make a motion to invite Jeff Piletsky to become an alternate member of the Morris Planning and Zoning Commission.
This is Eileen. I
Do I have
second
a
that.
second? Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Ron hasn't unmuted himself. I don't know if he's here. But since he expressed an interest, do we want to appoint him?
Hello, Dave. Dave, this is Ron.
Oh,
Schaefer.
he's here. All right, good.
Yeah, I was just,
Hey,
I
Ron,
wrote in
how
the
you doing?
chat. I wrote in the chat that I would, if it's okay with you, do it next week.
That's fine. So we are done with item 6. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, Jeff. Welcome.
Yeah, please, you know this stick. Go down to see Laura Halloran and get sworn in.
Pardon me?
This is Eileen. I'll send an email to the town clerk letting her know that Jeff has been appointed as an alternate, and then Jeff, you would need to go make an appointment with her to be sworn in.
Yep, I will contact her as soon as possible.
Jeff, there are no balloons or fireworks, usually only pitchforks and torches. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't matter what decision you make. Somebody's going to go home unhappy sometimes, and that's just what you have to deal with on this board.
Yeah,
I mean,
I witnessed it for many years. I was, I watched my father for years and years and years.
I understand.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of difference of opinion in town and always has been. So.
But that's what makes the world go round, and I think
Exactly.
if kept civil, it's a very good thing. You need to have a difference of opinion, because if everybody thinks the same way, you're going to make the wrong decision.
Exactly.
At least half of the time, probably. Okay. Is there anything notable on your report, Tony?
I have not done the report, but I will email it to everyone tomorrow.
And add it to the agenda for Tuesday, please.
Exactly. And there's also one bill, but I didn't upload it, so I'll have that for Tuesday as well.
Tony,
Thank
come on.
So this is Eileen. I make a motion that we move the communication and bills to Tuesday's meeting.
Veronica, second that.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Actually, it's not really a debatable motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Now, we took public hearing input on 3A, but if anybody, and for public input, I just want to point out that we are working on a town plan of development. And, you might want to take a look at the website and read that there are a number of members of public here. And I'd be more than happy to take your input when it comes to the meeting on November 9th that we plan to have to discuss that plan. And that plan is available on the website, where I'll upload everything that hasn't been uploaded that we talked about, and all the additional communications from the past week or so that aren't up there on the Poletsky matter, on the South Farms matter, I should say. It's not Poletsky, it's South Farms, on Higby Road. And, and if you have any questions or comments on that, I'm willing to take them under public input and non-agenda items. And on anything that doesn't have to do with anything on the agenda. Hearing silence, I guess I will leave it at that. I thank everybody for their patience, and
Actually,
We
David, I
will-
do have a question.
Yes, go
Because
ahead.
we did have, we were successful in having a special Board of Selectmen's meeting in the town hall yesterday. I know that Tom, the selectman, did say he's trying to get equipment for the town hall or the community center so that we could have hybrid meetings, but have a idea of when we're going to start doing in-person meetings?
I think I should answer
Well,
that.
Go ahead.
We can do it whenever we want. That's basically, and Tom's in the process of getting all the necessary equipment to have online meetings. So hybrid meetings.
And I would defer to the board. Let's plan on doing Mondays this way. And we also plan to do the 9th this way too, because I don't know whether we want to try to do an effective, but I think that's a decision I don't want to make by myself. I feel that's something I'll, at some point, or, I'd rather have it on the agenda as specifically what we're talking about rather than have it under the zoning enforcement officer's report or public comment. But if you want to add and keep it on the agenda until we make a decision on it, Tony, agenda item to discuss the potential of hybrid meetings and on-site meetings. That way we can talk about it when it makes sense.
I've added that also to the meeting minutes.
Sounds good to me.
I'd like to also make a motion to add something to the next regular meeting agenda.
Go ahead, Veronica.
I would like to add a discussion about what it is that Tony can approve without bringing it to the board. As you can tell, I'm not particularly happy with what happened. And I felt that something this size should have come before us, not us having to say, hey, what's that thing up on the property up there? So I want to have a discussion amongst ourselves, like, does he have to bring every shed to us? Or how's he going to know that he shouldn't do things like this without bringing it before us?
The basic answer to that, let's have a motion on the table. Do I have a second to that? We can't really discuss it till we have a second. Do we have a second?
I'll second Veronica, just so we can have the discussion, because we can always rescind the motion.
Right, yeah, I just want to have
We
the
can always vote it down or we can vote for it. It doesn't make a difference.
Right.
It's up to you guys. Unless, you make it a tie, then I might break the tie one way or another. If you make it, or if you make it a one vote margin, I feel we need to go one way or another because there's this particular compelling reason. I might make it a tie too. I have that option as chairman, but generally I will not vote unless there's a situation like that.
Veronica, I'm sorry.
But I guess the one comment I have to make, there are certain things, and I think that I don't have an issue with having that discussion because I think that's a healthy discussion because we're a lot of new members. And, this is the kind of thing we've not really had to deal with because there was a period of time for some of the people on this board where we didn't even have a zoning enforcement officer because Bob was fulfilling that role. And I think I don't necessarily have a problem with having that discussion. I think it's good for everybody, including Tony, and it's not really a measure of his job. Part of it is what we expect as board members is what comes before us and what he should be making decisions on. That's not necessarily, because he does have a reporting line to us as well as to Tom White, because I believe he's under the union and under the contract for the town. Any other discussion?
Actually, I do have a question of what you just said, Dave. So does the ZEO position report to the commission or the first selectman's office or both?
I believe it reports to both. Do you know for sure, Tony?
I think you're both my bosses, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. In the past, we were the only boss for the zoning enforcement officer. Now the town also, because of the arrangement with the union.
I think it's important for us to have this discussion. Maybe even by reviewing potentially the job description. Again, this is Eileen speaking, sorry. And maybe there needs to be, because I would hate to be in the position where I had approved something that shouldn't have and caused a whole upheaval in town. I mean, I would not want to be that person in that position. So I feel nothing but empathy for Jatone. But it also leads to the question of, is it something that happened because we didn't give him the guidance that he needs? So I do agree with Veronica in that we do need to have a discussion to determine what needs approval and what approval the First Selectman's office is allowed to give as opposed to planning and zoning, and what if there's a difference?
And I think the one thing one thing I think we want to keep focused on is, I think we need to discuss what the role of the zoning enforcement officer is. And we have to be very careful not to tread on anything that would be considered performance of duties. It's what are his duties?
Correct.
We can discuss, because otherwise we need to go to executive session, invite him, and he can has the option to agree or not agree to do that. And if we, I don't want to, I really would rather not have to do that and go that way. But if that's what the board wants to do, we can take that step. But we should note that we, might potentially go to an executive session if that's what is being driven at.
In my opinion,
And
this is Eileen, that we should just be trying to determine what the boundaries of a ZEO officer are.
Correct.
Okay.
That's all I want to do. That's all the.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we're clear on that and we understand what the rules of engagement are.
Has nothing to do with performance. I just want to discuss what the parameters are going to be to bring things before us.
And I think that's a good thing for everybody on the board, as I say, for the reasons I had already stated.
Mm-hmm. So there's a motion on the table.
Okay, you're calling the question?
That would be your job, Mr. Wick.
No, you can say I call the question. I've
Yes.
had
Well, no, I second it. I can't. I second the motion. I can't.
This guy, Roger Watts, he was a lawyer. I always like to say he was a lawyer for the bad guys, because he was a corporate lawyer against the environmentalists. But he was a very solid board member. He had good, strong conservative credentials. He very much enjoyed his time on the board and voting in some of the procedural aspects of it. He was as I say, he was a lawyer. But anyway, this question has been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't think there's, the only other thing left is to adjourn. I know that there are some comments in I believe the public comment was completed for the South Farms, correct, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the chat will be published anyway. Tony, have we been uploading the chat to the website?
The website just went some changes, so I don't know what's been. They've been trying to make sure everything on it, but yeah, I will make sure it's up there. Yes.
Okay, because that probably should be uploaded too.
I
So we have
agree.
that record, even the derogatory comments, which I sad to see. It shouldn't have to come to that.
David, it's Veronica. Last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, I believe, was it Lauren maybe, that said not everything had been converted. The website company is still in the process of because we were missing stuff that we had up there. They're still in the process of converting all the video and all that. So to give them a little time to get it all up there.
Yes, that was
Okay.
said. This is Eileen. I'm Narbutus. I make a motion to adjourn at 9:29, unless there's anything else that needs to come before the board.
Do I have a second?
Gloria, I heartily second that.
Second.
All those in favor? We'll do
Aye.
David first.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Did somebody say they abstained?
No, your
Oh,
voice
yeah,
is
that's
echoing,
okay.
David.
Okay.
All right, so you can stop recording.
Yes, that is agreeable.
Good night.